If you're a fan of bossa nova, Antonio Carlos Jobim needs no introduction. And as someone who played bossa nova as a young guitarist first, I have to say that it was partly his music that eventually led me to jazz. And that's because almost every one of his compositions is pure jazz harmony. And for this lesson, I have chosen one of his classic pieces, Samba de uma nota só, which, translated from Portuguese to English, we all know as one note samba. Next, I'm going to share my fingerstyle arrangement, and immediately after that, we are going to analyze the tune. And if you haven't already discovered, you're going to learn that it is based on the chord changes to two well-known jazz standards. And for those that find the arrangement too difficult, I am also going to show you an easier way to play the bridge. Finally, for those adventurous enough to stick around, I'm going to show you a contrafact of one-note samba with Coltrane changes. This piece is played in different keys, but I chose the key of A because it is very guitar friendly and allows for using lots of open strings. And this helps create independence between the main melody and the chords. Also, you notice that on the bridge, I incorporated some Baroque style counterpoint because Jobim not only was influenced by jazz, but also by various classical composers, especially Chopin and Villa-Lobos, who was Brazilian. And while on the topic of the bridge, before we analyze the entire piece, let's talk about its melodic essence as well as how to play it without the counterpoint. Usually when I'm playing in an ensemble setting and not solo fingerstyle, I would do something like this. This line, which is normally played fast, is alluding to a very popular Brazilian style known as choro, or like Brazilians affectionately call it, chorinho. Choro is a precursor of samba, and it is played in a group that is characterized by the cavaquinho, which is a small ukulele-like four-string instrument, a seven-string guitar, and a pandeiro, a kind of tambourine, which also happens to be the national instrument of Brazil. Of course, other instruments are used, but I want to focus on the pandeiro because the fast line on the bridge is a typical example of the phrasing employed in choro and Samba as well. Notice that the accents when playing consecutive eighth notes are on the downbeat of 1, upbeat of 2, and again downbeat of 3 and upbeat of 4. So the panderos played something like this, which on guitar, if I were to play the pattern on one string, would sound something like this with the accents. In the introduction, I mentioned that one-note samba's harmony is based on two well-known jazz standards. And what better way to analyze them than by listening to how the melodies of these two standards blend with the chord changes to one-note samba. So first, let's hear this first standard's melody over the A section and see if it sounds familiar to you. Unless you're an absolute newbie to jazz, you know it was rhythm changes or the A section of Gershwin's I Got Rhythm played as a bossa. And before we explore the harmony on the bridge, let's look at this harmony closer. For those of you not well versed in harmony, the initial C-sharp minor 7 is simply a diatonic substitution of the tonic, which in this case is A major. The C7 sharp 11 is a tritone substitute of F sharp 7 flat 9, which is the dominant of the upcoming B minor 11. The B flat 7 sharp 11 is a tritone substitute of E7 flat 9, which is the primary dominant of the upcoming A major. What is interesting is how Jobim created the melody for this section based on a common tone for all these chords. So for the first half of the A section, Jobim takes the fifth of the key, in this case A, and that happens to be an E, and harmonizes that note using different chords, starting first with a C sharp minor, and the E is the minor third there. Then he moves to a C7. Now that E becomes the major third. Then he moves to a B minor 7/11. Now the E becomes the 11th. And then he moves to a B flat sharp 11, where the E becomes the sharp 11, or flat 5 if you want to look at it from that angle. Next we have the second portion of the section. Here the E minor 7 and A7 are a 2/5 of the upcoming D major 7, which is the 4 chord. The G7 sharp 11 is the flatted 7, a modal interchange chord from the parallel A minor key. The last 4 chords happen to be the same as the initial 4. In keeping with the theme of this composition, again, Jobim creates the melody for this section by using a common tone for all of these chords. For the second half of the A section, Jobim uses the root of the key, in this case A, as the common note. And he starts out with an E minor 11th, where that A becomes the 11th. He goes to an A 7 sharp 5, and the A, of course, is the root. Then he goes to D major, and that becomes the 5th there. Then he moves to a G7, where it becomes the 9. And then he returns to the harmonized the one note from the first half of the A section, which is the E. In the final section, instead of going back from the harmonized root of the key, he keeps harmonizing that A, and that A becomes the 13 of a C7. Then the flatted 7 of a B chord. Then it becomes the major 7th of a B flat. And finally the root. Now it's time to discover what standard has the same harmony as the bridge. Let me play its melody over the B section to see if you recognize it. Those are the changes to Tune Up by Miles Davis. And it so happens that Jobim also used the same harmony on the bridge to Wave. So if you're enjoying this lesson, I recommend you watch my video titled Wave, a blues disguised as a bossa. And you'll be in for a lot of harmonic surprises. And I should also mention that another Jobim lesson I did for a tune based on another composition is How Insensitive. And that one is over the changes to a Chopin prelude, but even the melody is based on it. For those interested, I'll place direct links to both videos in the info section down below. Next, I want to show you a one-note samba contrafact using Coltrane changes. And if you're wondering what a contrafact is, it refers to a composition in which a new melody is written over the harmony to an existing standard. Of course, you can use substitutions in the changes and even use a different rhythm, which is what Jobim did. And this happens to be common practice in the jazz tradition. As most of you already know, Charlie Parker wrote several contrafacts over I Got Rhythm, as well as other standards. But before I show you my contrafact, oops, that sounded strange. Before you listen to my contrafact, I'd like to tell you about the download for this lesson. Excuse me. It features a PDF of the initial arrangement with regular notation and detailed tab, as well as that of the alternate simplified bridge. Also a lead sheet for the upcoming contrafact with Coltrane changes. And in addition, MP3s are included as well as a band-in-a-box file to practice. A MIDI file is also included for those that don't have band-in-a-box, which can be opened up in Guitar Pro or the free app MuseScore. And it's all available for a nominal contribution from jazzguitar.richiezelland.com/premium. So back to my contrafact with Coltrane changes. I wrote this back in the 90s and recorded it on my second CD called The Nazca Lines. One day I was playing one-note samba, and when I realized the bridge was the same progression as tune-up, I remembered that Coltrane altered the changes and wrote countdown based on tune-up. So I applied them to the one-note samba bridge and did the same with the rest of the tune. Of course, I had to write a different melody to go with the new changes. And so I called it Samba Train. And if you want a detailed lesson on how Coltrane took tune-up and converted it to countdown, I will also put a link in the info section below to a lesson titled Coltrane Changes Demystified. Next, you're going to hear me play the head over the original recording. And if you want to hear a complete live version, I will put a link down below. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, not only can you download the entire album, but also my entire discography for free. And featured on these recordings are a number of great players you're probably familiar with. All you have to do is go to my artist site, which is www.richiezelland.com/downloads, and you will find a direct link down below. Well, for those of you still with me, I truly hope you have enjoyed this lesson. And if so, please be sure to like and leave me a comment. And if this is your first time on this channel, don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified of my upcoming lessons. I look forward to bringing you another info-filled lesson very soon. Until then, you know the drill. Practice, practice, practice. Take the dog out for a walk, and then come back and practice some more. May peace be with you.